Hello out there. Welcome, welcome. My name is Daniel here at AutoCrit. AutoCrit really is a fantastic home for writers. We have our fully functional writer's desk, a whole suite of tools to help you send your work to literary perfection. And you can see some of our past streams we've done just recently about that. And we have our Academy page where we do all types of workshops and courses to help you become a better writer. And of course, we have a community of fellow authors, and we're going to highlight on the community today because I wanted to rev us up, get us excited for our next AutoCrit writing challenge. Now, as you can see from behind me, we love challenges here at AutoCrit. When we ask you to involve yourself in one of our challenges, we give you an interesting assignment. Well, what that does for you is it grows you as an artist. We sometimes give you interesting prompts and interesting guidelines, and we try to stretch you a little bit. And throughout all these different challenges throughout the year, we've seen our members get better and better. And of course, to join one of the challenges, you don't even have to be a member. We do make our challenges available to the general public. So if you're just here watching on the YouTube stream, don't worry. You don't actually have to become a member to join. Of course, there are some special benefits if you are a member and you join. Specifically, you get access to that writer's desk that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, we've done some fantastic challenges over the course of this year. We have the legendary character journey that we just did. We have our Start Strong challenge. One of my favorites, Destination Unknown. That was a lot of fun. Destination Unknown, we gave you a prompt to start out with, and then we gave you some twists, and then we had you finish on the exact line that we gave you. And throughout doing all of that, you could get a little bit frustrated, but you have to be nimble and you have to play along. Holiday writing challenge. We had everybody write about the holidays, and the pre-writing Palooza challenge. That one was a little bit unusual because it wasn't even about writing prose. It was about the planning stage. Ooh, planning, right? A lot of people don't particularly love planning, but we had a specific challenge for that in order to gear everybody up at that point for NaNoWriMo, because October often was associated with prep. So, what do we have next? Well, we do, of course, have our short story challenge coming next. And our short story challenge is really one of the highlights of the year. We look forward to it every single year because um, there's something about the short story form. We allow for entries to be a lot longer, and we have a very special trophy anthology that we print up for the winners. Now, this isn't the same thing as like a printed. Published work. We're not selling it. And so, in fact, you can, and many of our participants have gone on after winning and sold it somewhere else. And so it can be a great, wind in your sails for your career. You can tweak it perhaps, make some adjustments, get some feedback from others, and then put it out there in the open market, or other contests or other anthologies, and get it published. And like I said, we've had that success. Before I wanted to talk a little bit about short stories, I did want to talk specifically about some of the successes that our authors have had with these challenges. So, Candice from our community said when it comes to the legendary character challenge, it helped me connect with my main character when I had been struggling to know who they were and what they wanted for years. And I love that. I love when our challenges, open up the mind, give you that aha moment, help you with something that perhaps you were working on. We've had people go on from our short story challenges or from any of our challenges go through. Finish the work, perhaps turn it as a whole beginning or a prompt for an entire novel. One of the tricks to writing, by the way, maybe you've heard this, is writing, and being a little facetious, but it's true. It's about getting your rear in the chair, your hands on the keyboard, doing something. And when we give you a little bit of a challenge, it gives you that incentive to get going. Of course, we have fun prizes that work as well. But I think it's honestly just the idea that somebody is going to read it. It's going to be part of something. You aren't just going to be collecting dust on the shelf when you're done. It will be going somewhere. And certainly, we love to receive all of the entries we have to all of the challenges, read through them, and yeah, I just, you can tell I'm excited. I just always get so impressed with what everybody delivers based on our fun hoops and guidelines to give them for sure. Eric from the community had another interesting point, and he said, by working within the strict guidelines, I'm forced to push my creativity in ways that I most assuredly would not do if left to my own devices. Nice and safe here in my comfort zone. And just like those old poems, he was talking about being in a poetry class, the result is flawed and awkward and brimming with potential. After I submit my monthly challenge, I immediately start to fix them. Sometimes that means getting rid of the goofy required opening or closing sentences, or expanding the word count to do the story justice, or what have you. But the results have produced a number of flash fiction pieces that I'm inordinately pleased with, a couple of which I've queued up for the short story collection I'm working on. And again, that's what's so much fun. Sometimes when you get an unusual challenge and you get a prompt and you're like, this is not what I would do. This is totally out of my comfort zone. Like, what am I even going to do with this? It's fun to actually say, yeah, do it. Make it happen. Make it work. Now, for the short story challenge, we generally do not give a strict prompt. And in fact, are not planning on it. There will be a theme this year. Of course, you gotta stay tuned next week to figure out what it is. I know you're all excited, but, I don't want you to jump the gun. The intention for the short story challenge is that you are, in fact, writing the short story during the short story challenge. So, we're not gonna reveal the, theme in advance. However, um, yeah, stay tuned until next week. I'm even gonna give you a hint. Sorry. Yeah, but stay tuned to Ed next week, for our big, presentation, our big kickoff, and we'll let you know what that is. And Tony stated that while never placing in an AutoCrit competition, she's been very pleased to be included in a few honorable mentions and final rounds. AutoCrit's competitions lean into skills that we really need to be good writers, and some challenges acquaint us with new possibilities in the writer's desk. These are all valuable, and I always learn quite a bit in every competition. And then she mentioned that the writer's desk just keeps getting better. The team at AutoCrit really listens to our wish list and they keep knocking it out of the park. Of course, I always love to hear that. These little competitions are lots of fun too, and the community here is amazing. At the end of a competition, more often than not, I end up with the nucleus of an idea for a short story, a series of shorts, or even a novel. My creative wheels get greased and my stable of works get larger. What's not to like? Indeed. What's not to like? Now, I know some of you out there, you might be very familiar and comfortable working in long form. Maybe you have some works under your belt. Maybe that's what all of your work in progresses are. And you really haven't worked in the short story format at all. So, what I thought I would do as a little preview, a little kickoff to this whole short story challenge is give you a look at our short story lab that we also have coming up next week that is going to coincide with the launch of the short story challenge. For those of you who are not familiar with the short story format, we have a whole course inside the Academy page that you can participate in, and it will guide you along the whole process as well. And so you're never alone around here at AutoCrit, right? We're always there to help. We're always there to assist. That is what we love to do. Of course, we have the wonderful tools in the writer's desk, and we explore those in the short story lab as well. But we also have us, right? We're here too. It is a combination of all the elements, everything that we could possibly provide for you in order to make your writing experience as great as possible. All right, so let's take a little bit of look inside the short story lab, shall we? The first question when it comes to short stories that a lot of you ask is, what makes a short story different than a longer story, right? What makes it different from a long form novel? Well, they're shorter. Thank you. Good night. Goodbye. No, I'm kidding. Of course, that's not all there is to it, right? But it is interesting how sometimes I think people neglect how being shorter has such a tremendous impact on the art form. It is not just simply a book or it's not simply just a piece of a book or a scene or things like that. You do have to think about your craftsmanship and your narrative in very different ways in order to accomplish short story effectively. In fact, there are some artists that are not nearly as good at short stories as they are long form and vice versa, right? So that being said, now that I've explained that you do need to do things differently, what are some things that you need to do differently when writing a short story? And I think it's very important to clarify what short stories are not in order to make sure that we approach them in the appropriate way. So, some of the things that short stories are not, short stories should not be a first chapter. A first chapter can feel a little bit like a short story at times with like a beginning, middle, and end, although typically those are more like a prologue than a first chapter, right? But it shouldn't feel like a first chapter that beckons you to just read further, right? It should feel like something with a beginning and a middle and an end, or at least a beginning and a middle. I do know that short stories do allow for an ambiguous ending more often than a long form story would, right? It should not be a disconnected scene. In other words, it shouldn't just feel like things are happening and we don't really have the context. We don't really understand what is occurring. It's just action, and because the problem is it won't carry it won't carry any meaning when you do that. You certainly could describe somebody preparing for a speech, and that could be a short story in a sense, but it's not going to land very well if we don't have enough contextual clues as to why this speech matters, right? You can certainly throw that in. You don't have to be heavy handed about it, but we should get an idea of what that is. It shouldn't be something that we can just imagine, right? Again, you generally want a beginning, middle, and end. So you'd want some sort of conflict as well. You wouldn't want just disconnected action that doesn't seem to add up to anything or doesn't lead to anything. It should not be a synopsis. Now, this should be obvious. Uh, I'm including this, perhaps some of this is a little bit of a tip. So think of this as like inside information to kind of get you on the fast track of becoming a finalist for the short story challenge. It should not be a synopsis because, a synopsis is a high level overview of a longer story. And so the purpose of a synopsis is to give you a summary of something that is not intended to be consumed that way, but it is a summary for the purpose of information, not for a dramatic experience. So, something like a Wikipedia article that tells you the synopsis of Pride and Prejudice is going to tell you all the high level details, but it is not a dramatic experience and it is not a reading experience that is like a short story. Now, again, I would think this should seem obvious, but I can tell you, as somebody who has been a judge, been on the judging panel for the short story challenge, we do in fact get synopsis, and I have seen short stories out in the wild that are really a synopsis, right? There is in fact a difference, and as you continue to watch our weekly streams, because we're going to go through some of the guidelines of how to tell an effective short story as part of the challenge as well, you're going to see some of the difference and how you can get into the details without overwhelming the audience. Short stories are also not a novella, in that novellas are much longer than short stories. They are technically a completely different art form. Now, there are general guidelines about word length. However, it's not a hard and fast rule. However, you can expect that a certain amount of length is going to be in a short story. We'll describe that in just a second. When it comes to short stories, you could think of the whole novel as like a whole Broadway show, right? The whole extravaganza from start to finish. But you'll know that often in a Broadway show, the songs in a Broadway show have a little bit of a story in themselves. Somebody will start a moment and they'll think, I really want to accomplish something. And then they'll kind of rev themselves up. And then finally, by the end of the song, they'll be determined, yes, I will do that thing. That would be more of a short story, right? Another example you could think of is the the Olympics. You can watch all of the Olympics from start to finish, opening ceremonies, commentary, pre-show, all of those things. Or you could watch a individual routine from the Olympics, right? Now, if I wanted you to enjoy a specific routine in the Olympics, what am I going to do? I could obviously splice the most exciting, interesting part of, let's say, a balance beam routine, right? Put it up on TikTok or YouTube and go on my merry way. But you'll notice that a lot of times the way that they will make those videos more impactful is you will get additional context. Like, this is the first time somebody has accomplished this. This is the first time this athlete accomplished this. Watch as this athlete makes her family proud, etc., right? And so, again, you're taking a snapshot in time often with a short story. This the breadth of the story is going to be smaller, but the emotional impact actually it can be just as meaningful. How many of us have teared up when we've seen, somebody return, a soldier return to his family, right? And it's just an incredibly moving thing to watch. And this is something where we didn't know the family very well. We just had enough context to understand that we could relate to it, and within 30 seconds, we are incredibly moved. So just because you aren't telling Lord of the Rings or some dramatic, overarching story of somebody's entire life, don't think that what I'm saying is that you can't reach for those heartstrings. You can't make an impactful story. You can't make a meaningful story. You just need to be careful about how you go about it. Now, as I was saying earlier, we were going to talk about numbers. Yes, 1,000 to 10,000 words is where a short story lies. And the average are around 2,000 to 7,000 words. But when you really get over that, you're talking about something that's going to appear more like a novella. And just a couple of rules of thumb. Generally, short stories have only a few characters, sometimes only one. Think again of that video of somebody doing a balance beam routine, or you could think of the child very excited to see their father come home from the army, or things like that. Very few characters, strong impact. They often have very few scenes, if even more than one. Remember, it's about depth, not necessarily breadth. If you include a lot of scenes, you run the risk of ending up in summary territory, something that appears more like a synopsis, flying at a high level, not giving the audience the dramatic impact that they would like. And they tend to be limited in scope, hyper focused, right? We are zeroing in on something. It shouldn't feel like we just took something out of a larger book by itself without any additions. Again, I could just edit you a balance beam routine out of the Olympics. And it might be fine. It might be very interesting. It might be very beautiful to watch, but it's not going to carry the same impact as if I give you a little bit of contextual, a little bit of context about that person. I get hyper focused as to why am I showing you that, right? Am I showing you that because for that person, for that athlete, that moment is going to mean so much to them. This is the moment they clinched the gold medal or something like that. That is more hyper focused versus just look at something pretty. Isn't this kind of fun? Isn't this kind of interesting? No, no, no. We want to tell as rich of a story as we can within the confines of the word count. So all in all, I'm just going to leave you with this. Short stories, more concentrated. Stronger tone, clearer perspective. Yes, we are concentrating on something specific, clear message a lot of the time. The tone is often bolder and more vivid because we just have less time to explore all the nuance. It tends to be more punchy. And often the perspective into the situation is a lot clearer if you just think about that amount of space. Now, it's possible that you can have a very voicey book. And so, like, sure, right from the get go, you have a very clear perspective. But there's a lot more long form books that have a more ambiguous perspective that maybe you can infer over time or things like that. Short stories tend to get into that clarity really quick because again, you just don't have as much time to explore all the nuance. And so it's punchy, it's more concentrated, and in many ways can be a lot more impactful. So hopefully this is getting you excited, right? All of these wonderful things and wonderful differences between short story and longer form. And so if you are excited, well, I do beckon you to sign up for the short story challenge that's going to be kicking off next week at this time, 1 p.m. Eastern here. And we're going to be running it all month. You'll be able to submit at the end of the month. Of course, you do want to join us next week because that's when we're going to be revealing our very special theme that is going, that we're going to ask everybody to write a short story for. Keep in mind, we'll explain this more next week, that when it comes to the theme, we do expect you to take the theme loosely, abstractly, as a prompt. We generally pick a word that carries a lot of different meanings to it. And so, keeping that in mind, uh, go into it with an open mind, right? Maybe don't use your first idea. Maybe don't use your fifth idea. Try using your seventh idea, right? You got all month to work on it. So there is no rush at all. Anyway, I'm so looking forward to you could tell I love these challenges. They're so much fun. Um so please join us, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Of course, we have wonderful events all week for you in AutoCrit. If you want to head to our calendar page, you can check out all of those wonderful events that we have going on. We have club sessions tonight. We have club sessions tomorrow night. And yeah, it's never been a better time to join us here at AutoCrit. Thank you very much, everybody. You have a wonderful day. Bye.